Are you just making that up? You were just making that up, right? Everyone else gets a script, man. A friend once asked me, do you think a men's rights-based comedy event would be a good idea? And I said, no. Yeah, all right. I better do something. Why did the men's rights advocate cross the road? Statistically, they have a disproportionately high risk of suicide. See what I mean? Here you go. Why did the transsexual cross the road? Statistically, they have a disproportionately high risk of suicide. Do your thing, BBC! I know you're out there. Which one of these jokes is going to be on TV later? Funny, 15 seconds ago I was a comedian, but now I'm a Nazi dog whistler. And I don't even have a Nazi dog. Do you think that was the beginning of the sort of chain reaction of events that happened to Dankula? Like some activists went to the Scottish police and said, track down and arrest a Nazi dog whistler. And they got sort of lost in translation. Who the fuck is a Nazi dog whistler? They're going, oh, do a Google search for Nazi dog. What did the Nazi dog say to the communist cat? Woof. Because it's a fucking dog. What did the communist cat say in response? Meow. Because it's a fucking communist. What's black and white and red all over? Antifa. Getting fucked to death by robots. A feminist, an egalitarian, and an MRA walk into a bar. Gunshot, 404, blue screen of death. This joke is no longer available. It's been removed by the user. Move on, Mike, move on. Knock, knock. Well done. The British police. Right, that's it. You're under arrest for resisting arrest. Enter stage left, breaks an old lady's legs in half. Oi, love, you got a license for that compound fracture? In the back of the van. Yeah, this is niche comedy, folks. A niche within a niche. Comprised almost entirely of obnoxiously esoteric in-jokes, much like the content on my channel. You guys find it funny, some of you, but it's not but a bewildering mess to the mainstream bloggers in the audience. Sorry, I mean journalists. I kill myself. That's why I say no. MRA comedy is a bad idea, a very bad idea. This thing I'm doing right now, fucking terrible idea. It's the worst idea anyone's had since a disgruntled Ukrainian technician thought he'd see what happens if you wank into a nuclear reactor. That was a deleted joke from the decommissioned series Blackadder Does Chernobyl. Or perhaps just another bad joke. Hey, you at the back, you're not safe. Hey, are you circumcised? No, not you, sir, the lady next to you. Are you circumcised? No? Ew! I knew I could smell AIDS in here. So you, sir, are you her boyfriend? What's that like? Does she have that sort of pulped and dog-eared sort of moose knuckle thing going on? Where's the aperture on this thing? Am I going to need dynamite? Fire in the hole, folks. I want my money back. I ordered a donut and I got a piece of pineapple upside down cake. Right. I'm trying this out for the Netflix special. It's wholesome stuff, don't you think? All right, like I said, men's issues is not a subject that normally does well in comedy, because it's either dead serious by its nature, or it's simply I believe the term is reputational risk. So we're going to focus the rest of this lecture on the culture war, which is just the wider consequences of the men's issues issue, watered down and padded out for the Johnny-come-latelys. So let's settle down, folks. Let's ease into the routine. Let's get serious for a minute. I have a confession to make. Ladies and gentlemen, it's about my past, my dark, unmentionable past. It's not something I'm proud of or ashamed of. It is what it is. As you do, I found myself getting in with the wrong crowd, as they say, so deep into it that I started to wonder if I was the crowd. Started off innocently enough when I was still a young whippersnapper, full of piss and non-rude condiment. From as early as I can remember, I firmly believed I was better than flat earthers, and I thought I was better than anti-vaxxers and homeopaths and Raelians and all kinds of kooky sex fetish business found mostly on the internet. Then I branched out a bit and started thinking I was better than religious people of all stripes. Christians, Muslims, Jews, just everyone. I became convinced that I was intellectually superior to all of them. Then I thought I was better than conservatives and right-wingers in general. Then I thought I was better than liberals and left-wingers in general. Then I thought I was better than feminists, which didn't last long, because by the very next morning I was already better than anti-feminists. And I was better than Game in the Game before I even knew it existed. And then in a curious inversion of reasoning, I became better than atheists while still being better than the religious. And also better than centrists while still being better than leftists and rights. Frankly, it was becoming exhausting being this much better than so many people. By this point, I could feel my condition circling back in itself in multiple dimensions, but there was already no stopping it. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, I had become entrenched, bitterly entrenched, in the better than you community. No matter what I moved on to, no matter which movement at which I tried my hand, it was never long before I reached the unavoidable conclusion that these people just don't have that firm grasp on the infinite with which I'm blessed. I mean, which I earned through devoted and vigilant wokeness. I mean, red-pilledness. I'm better than you, all right? At one bizarre and trying interval, I even discovered that I'm better than skeptics. Indeed, skeptics were among the dullest people whose interests I callously waltzed through like a drunken tourist. They would ask me, do you pledge allegiance to the flag of the skeptic community and devote your soul to its centralized monochromatic machinations? And I would say, no, never, 9, and so on. Do you doubt the word of skepticism? They would ask with incredulous and horrified expressions, and I would reply, yes, I wholly reject the doctrine of skepticism. I am, in fact, racked with doubt all the time. And what does that make you? They'd ask. And they'd begin to giggle, childishly, as though I had said something amiss. I didn't know where to start, so naturally I couldn't even. I had already proved that I was better than them, but for some reason they branded me some kind of hypocrite, which is absurd on its face, since I'd already declared myself superior to the hypocrite community. But like with everything else, I overcame this adversity, and now I'm better than those wastrels I left behind in the better than you community. What more proof could you need that I'm now over this terrible affliction? And with my help, you too can become the best person anyone can be. And I'm going to use my galaxy brain abilities to help out another poor soul who still suffers from this unsightly scourge. And I'm going to do it in the form of a video response, because I know you guys like that sort of thing. And I'm going to do it live, because we have no idea how much longer we're going to be able to do this on YouTube. All right, let's go. Who am I responding to? Anyone know? Anyone take a guess?
Gil.
Gil to you too, sir. That's right, it's none other than Mr. Philip Mason, also known as the YouTuber known as Thunderfoot. Strengths, science and technology. Weaknesses, Armenian ice queens and the European Union. For those of you already familiar with this chap, have you ever played the Thunderfoot drinking game? It's pretty straightforward. You drink every time he goes, you know, that's about 3,000 PSI. Normally you get wrecked as hell, but there's only one in this whole video, so keep an ear out for it, and we'll go ahead and dive on in here.
So I came across this picture.
I'm such a child. Go on.
From VidCon 2017. These were the proud shitlords.
Commiserations to those of you who didn't make it onto the team, onto the entity we call the proud shitlords. You weren't in the photo, sorry.
And this was also about the time that I was looking at the constitution of the skeptic community and thinking, there's not a lot of high cards in this deck.
Not a lot of high cards. I was high as fuck, mate. I don't know what you're about. And I'm obviously a card. I'm just not necessarily better than you.
They're overwhelmingly young. Almost no, old people in this photo whatsoever.
Did you not spot the boomer? He's right there in the middle. What's the point in having a rapidly greying beard if all anyone sees is the spanked baby face underneath it? He's only 2 years older than me, but that counts. Is he not in here? You can say whatever you like about him. Fucking quasi-leftist shitbag. This is the kind of thing he wanted me to do at his live show. Good things come to those who waste.
As far as I can tell, it's literally one black guy, literally a token.
There's literally one ginger guy. Stood right the fuck behind the literally one black guy. Literally a token, Phil. Literally. We went to the arcade and scored big on the whack-a-mole, so they gave us some black guy we could turn in for $1. Whereas Dave Cullen here simply bought a ticket to the event and flew there on a plane like a fucking human being. How come the black guy is literally a token and the ginger guy literally isn't? Or did you only notice one kind of literal token?
And yeah, I can perfectly understand why others are reluctant to engage, because the first thing they will do is call you a racist.
Thanks, Thunderfoot from before Brexit. I almost miss you. Let's crack on.
And who we got now? We got Andy Warski.
Sorry, I don't even know I'm laughing.
Sargon of a card.
That's quite a frog you have in your throat there. Or is it a dick? I don't know. So where's Sargon now? Is he going strong? He's going stronger than you, isn't he? In every conceivable measurement. Never mind, Phil.
That guy's Dave Cullen. Recognise him.
Also still going strong, by the way. Not just on YouTube, but on new platforms like Minds and BitChute, where we'll all have to eventually bail. He's done remarkably well for someone without a soul.
That guy, I think, is actually called some black guy.
Yes, he is. That's essentially what you just called him just now. You didn't mention anything about him except his race and his gender, because that's the only shit you've ever noticed. That's probably why he went with a tongue-in-cheek name like some black guy, because so many smarmy, thick-necked fucks like you keep calling him a token just for being a black guy in a mostly white country. Knob.
Then, of course, you got that guy who's tied to Andy Warski.
Yes, that's Chris Warski. Somehow not a token. There's a Polynesian guy down the front there, so I guess there are 2 Asian tokens in this photo. 2.5 if you count Rucka Rucka Ali on the right there.
And this guy...
Yes, this guy. Now, I realise you did post a follow-up video admitting to your mistake and even apologising for it, quite uncharacteristically, I must say. But it's important to note that you, Phil Mason, research scientist extraordinaire, you spend the next 8 minutes of this video meandering and perambulating your way through some really quite libelous statements about Rucka because you got him egregiously and avoidably confused with someone else, didn't you? You thought he was Andy Warski's buddy, the guy who pulled the gun on the street and got arrested for it. Now, I don't know who that guy is. I don't even know his name or his face or why I even would, but I know Rucka. Because he's an old-school freaking legend whom I've been listening to for 10 years. It really does say more about you than it says about anyone else. To you, the big celebrity is shoot-face, the no-hit wonder from downtown fuck knows. The guy everyone else has long since forgotten or never laid eyes on in the first place is the guy whose ghostly apparition is hunting your waking nightmares. These are not the actions of one you might call the highest card in the deck. Or perhaps you are and you're playing blackjack. Thunderfoot busted.
I only came across incredibly recently. I don't even know his name.
It's Rucka Rucka Ali. Not shoot-face Von Warski did nothing wrong 420 Blazer or whatever.
And the reason I came across him is because Andy Warski.
This suggests a very limited frame of reference, doesn't it? Like all you've ever seen are YouTube dishwater hit pieces about Warski and Sargon and Mundane Matt. Pray tell, where have you been getting your information? He asked, semi-rhetorically.
You know, this was shortly, at the time this photo was taken, all of these people were riding the absolute crest of...
I wasn't. Yes, I'm in this photo. There are several people in this photo who are not even internet famous. Can you tell me why you didn't know that? Answer's in the question, isn't it? You spaz.
They were all in it together and great friends and everything. And now almost no one in this photo can stand anyone else in this photo.
I can stand everyone in this photo. There's only 4 of them who I listen to, and there are a couple of pointless posers who I probably never will, but there are none whose presence I cannot stand. I stood with them once, and I'll gladly stand with them again, if it's for something as meaningless as a group photograph. Now then, are you still friendly with these guys? How about this guy? Once upon a time, you and PZ Myers were very much riding on each other's crests, weren't you? So to speak. For 'tis better spoken than pictured. How's it going now with your buddy PZ? Can you stand him, let alone sit with him? And whatever your answer may be, what exactly does this say about atheists and their organized movement? What does this say about the proud heathen Brights of 2011? It's fuck all, isn't it? Because it's just a name I've arbitrarily given you to suit my pouting fucking revisionist identitarian narrative. Doesn't this all fall apart the moment you pull out the load-bearing linchpin of, yeah, but I'm better than you? Yeah, you're not. Just like everyone else. You make friends, you lose friends, you try hard to bring people together, and sometimes you fail. And then you pretend you never wanted friends in the first place because you're basically Shadow the Hedgehog on his period. Hey now, men can have periods too. Google told me. But whatever, right? This isn't your science channel. I guess it's just your bitching channel, and that's fair enough. The separation was long overdue, if you ask me. But like I said, it really does cast some doubt on your functionality as a researcher. But you could still have an illustrious career as a violently menstruating gothic hedgehog.
If you're trying to actually convince Joe Public that you've got something interesting to bring, branding yourself as shitlords.
Well, you made the effort to count the roughly 40 people in this video. Did you go as far as to count the number of people who are branding themselves as shitlords? Because I've studied this snapshot like a Where's Waldo annual, and so far I've counted, I wonder if you can count with me, one. The guy third from the left in the attractive burgundy t-shirt there, that's 1 out of 40. You're off by a factor of about 97.5%. Very shoddy work. You could just about get us for the Kekistan flag, because it was in plain sight of all of us, but were you really expecting all of us, all 39 of us, to notice the one guy wearing a shitlord t-shirt and promptly hold up our hands and walk away going, whoa, whoa there, won't somebody think of Joe Public?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great joke amongst you and your friends on the internet, but I'm really not so sure it's going to play that well outside of that little clique on the internet.
That's not the internet! That's real life you're looking at. You're looking at a group of people who have self-evidently gone beyond the internet, and you're telling them they'll never get beyond the internet, and you're telling them this from behind the internet, where you've been hiding ever since you killed the atheist community, because that's clearly how that shit works. This is starting to get worrying. It's like you're staring right at the cut you made in the edit and telling everyone there is no cut in the edit. It's deranged. Blatantly deranged. Most derangement syndromes concern just one individual, like bearing Trump's Sarkeesian. But in your bloodstream, the disease has spread rapidly into a chronic case of everybody derangement syndrome, otherwise known as I'm better than you.
Anyway, so Andy Warski was absolutely at the top of his game.
I don't even know if you're serious.
About this time. And shortly afterwards, it wasn't so much he embraced white nationalism, but he certainly his show became very friendly to it, and he got this J.F. Garapi.
Yeah, that's exactly the kind of decision someone makes when they're at the top of their game.
Who's one of the most, what would the word be?
Retarded?
It's sort of obsequious and offensive people you can imagine.
Very much so. So is there anyone out there in internet land who specializes in making video hit pieces on hilariously deluded public figures and their fucked up sexual fetishes? Such as calling yourself a Chad male because you have a penchant for kick fucking whatever gurglers you can tie to the back of your Pinto? Remember, fellow Chads, there is no such thing as a retarded old.
To be a co-host, and then they had this dramatic falling out, and then he had one last flash of fame, which was related to the internet blood sports thing.
It's really hard to say with a straight face, isn't it?
Now, with internet blood sports, the idea was two guys come on and they don't do any of this cerebral, they duke it out Jerry Springer style.
Again, if there's anyone out there in the tubes whose bread and butter comes from making fun of cringe on the internet, making fun of all the low IQ betas squabbling like schoolgirls and calling it intellectual MMA. Seriously, now is your time to shine. Oh, nonchalant smear merchants of the new media. No? You hear the crickets? Off in the distance, they're chirping, I'm braver than you.
And there was a guy called Mr. Medical, or Mr. Mediocre, Mr. Minotaur, something like that.
Cold as ice, Phil. You are a savage. I don't know you, sir. I've never seen this man in my life.
Mr. Mediocre, Mr. Minotaur, something like that.
And Peter said, Man, I know not what thou sayest. And immediately while he spake, the cock did crow.
Mr. Medical,
or Mr. Mediocre,
Mr. Medical,
Mr. Minotaur,
Mr. Medical,
or something like that, or something like that, or something.
And the Lord turned and looked upon Peter. And Peter remembered the word of the Lord, how he had said unto him before, the cock crows, thou shalt disown me 3 times.
Mr. Medical, Mr. Medical, Mr.
And Peter went out and wept bitterly. If you subscribe to just one person today, make it this guy, Mr. Medical. Totally forgotten what his name is. Oh.
Or something like that.
So, Phil, if you somehow still don't earn yourself a hit piece for this languid betrayal of the Lord, then it is a testament only to the divine mercy of our Lord YouTube Jesus, for he is so very smart and so very, very brave.
Usually he is an absolutely superb barometer.
Of what?
Of
drama.
The sentiment of the internet. In terms of calling what's just dumb and what's not.
Yeah, I forgot, arbitrating what's good and bad. So if you're ever out LARPing as medieval feudalists and you need someone to play the king, he's your man. This is what internet celebrities are for, ladies and gentlemen, telling you what's good and what's bad about other internet celebrities. Perfectly normal, perfectly healthy, perfectly scientific, as far as YouTube scientists go.
But this was one of his few slip-ups, was him calling internet blood sport as one of the next big things. Because it might have actually been, had it not been run by
Jim and his disciples.
A bunch of grade A fuck-up artists.
I love you, Dr. Mason, and I want to have your babies.
Who really, it self-destructed almost as soon as it was a thing.
Meanwhile, he was telling Sargon, in 6 months' time, you're gonna have gone nowhere and you're gonna be so embarrassed. But to be fair, you can't really turn that around on Jim. He doesn't experience the sensation of embarrassment ever, no matter what happens, no matter how much of an infantilized tool he makes of himself in public. It's what we in the meme business refer to as cringe.
So 2 of the names in there were Andy Warski and another guy called Tonkasaw, who I'm not even so sure what he looks like.
Because he's not pictured here? Is there anything not computing yet?
But he loudly claimed himself to be
not a skeptic, not part of that amorphous, nebulous enemy known as the skeptic community, just like Jim, just like JF, just like Failure, just like Cog. By the way, most of that tribe is mysteriously absent from this picture. The picture that you've decided officially defines who is and who is not part of the Proud Shitlords, TM. There's quite a clue there, a huge protruding clue that you gave yourself and then promptly forgot. One of the most ubiquitous themes of the internet blood sports gang was their denouncement and disavowal of the skeptic community, the very entity you are talking about. As a matter of fact, they took every opportunity to mock that so-called community and whoever they arbitrarily decide is part of it. Now, does that remind you of anyone? Phil? Really have a good old ponder for me now. Can you think of anyone else who declared, I want nothing to do with the skeptic community, and then acted like a bleeding cockwat who thinks he's better than everyone?
He loudly claimed himself to be a pro wrestler. And not only was he a pro wrestler, he would whop anyone's ass if they argued with him or something. And this was his sort of go-to line if someone was giving him grief.
This is a fascinating area of specialism, I have to say, talking about contemporary F-list celebrity drama, but in a bumbling and wholly undramatic way, long after everyone's forgotten about it. Don't listen to the haters telling you to stick to the science, Phil. I reckon you're onto something.
Anyway, so he comes up to Andy Warski and he challenges him to a fight in real life where he'll whop his sorry ass. And Andy does what no one else has done. He says yes. And
No, really, I'm on the edge of my fucking seat.
what followed was actually quite... I mean, watching the self-destruction of what's in this photo has actually been fairly entertaining. Anyway...
You're experiencing tunnel vision, Mr. Mason. It's one of the telltale symptoms of EDS. What's on your screen right now is this, but what you're currently seeing is this. And as far as your brain is now concerned, this is the photograph you were looking at all along. When one person who I don't like fucks up, that means everyone I don't like has also fucked up, and I was right and I'm better than you. The difference between an individual and a group they don't even endorse, it's not even a difference. It's just an inconvenient obstacle that we can go ahead and step over if we feel like it, right? Oh shit, mate, what's happening here?
Hello, shitlords. I am here with... My God, who am I here with? I'm here with Armoured Skeptic, Louis Levi, Anthony Fantano, Hatful Opinions, Sean Head, and Thunderfoot.
You know, listening to the self-destruction of what's in this stream has actually been fairly entertaining.
And we all have to be on our best behaviour because Thunderfoot's here. So everybody.
Thunderfoot has just got back from happy hour, though, haven't you, mate?
I have indeed.
You what, mate? You don't call yourself a shitlord. It was somebody else who used that term. Let's go through the tally one more time, shall we? 1 out of 40 equals 40 self-proclaimed shitlords. 1 out of 7 equals, let me guess, 6 self-proclaimed shitlords and 1 top-notch research scientist who's better than them. And yet, many of the devoted, unquestioning flunkies of YouTube Jesus go around doxing anyone who gets on the wrong side of YouTube Jesus. Nothing to do with YouTube Jesus. I hate Rick and Morty, and will never watch it because some dribbling beeper stood on a McDonald's counter and yelled some quotes from the show. It's hilarious, isn't it? How creators are sometimes responsible for the worst of their fanboys and anyone else peripherally associated with them, and sometimes they just magically, deadass, are not accountable for anyone. The world's not just queerer than we suppose, it's queerer than we can suppose. Schrodinger's everything. It's the principal presentation of EDS. Life is a comedy for those who think, a tragedy for those who feel, and a never-ending fucking convenience for those who just talk shit.
It's not a bug, it's a feature.
Oh, harmful. You always were ahead of your time.
And that's just going to be such a soul-destroying thing to actually... to realise that that's your life.
Indeed. So why not adopt the approach of the better than you community and just never realise anything?
You know, just looking into a camera phone.
Or just a microphone. Honk.
And, I mean, apparently there are people who watch it and people make loads of money doing it.
Talking into a camera, yes. California is actually quite famous for it. There's a town just up a highway called Hollywood. It's a long story, but it's one that's worth researching.
But the thing is, the first to market, the people who become big names in it inspire a gazillion copycats. And apparently that's sort of where Andy wanted to go.
Yes, he is still talking about Andy and his gun adventure. I even had to skip some of the Grandpa Simpson tangents he keeps going on. It's funny, yet somehow sadder than it is funny.
It turns out he'd been live streaming with this guy who, like I said, I don't even know his name.
And this is what I'm skipping to. I really thought this was a point that bears repeating. If you don't know his name, and you evidently don't even know his face, then before you go accusing him of a crime, it's of paramount importance that you do some research. Dr. Phil. It's what makes all the difference between Dr. Mason and Dr. Phil, wouldn't you agree?
But I have seen the video where Andy Warski, a big fat guy...
That's Mundane Matt. I realise you're talking about a guy called Failure, who is a completely different person, but who the fuck cares, right? 6 to 1, swings and roundabouts for the other. This is the Dr. Phil show. Fuck the research, just get that slime pushed out.
And this guy are going around the streets of Florida, and they get into some fight with...
Florida Man? You don't go to Florida and not have a fight with Florida Man. It's like going to Mexico and not trying the gang rape. You still here, BBC? There it is. Time stamp that one. That's the one you want. That's the juicy shack meat you're looking for. The lions are going to love it.
Or, you know, some pushing and shoving with some guys.
I'm really sick of this story now, Phil. I'm skipping the rest. We all get the idea by now. It's not just guilt by association. It's guilt by association via mistaken identity. All of these people are culpable for the actions of one completely unconnected douchebag who you can't even remember. Bravo, dude. You're better than all of us because you do skepticism properly. You're a fucking hero.
This guy, Dave Cullen, as far as I can tell, is he really got into the conspiracy stuff, or he was always a conspiracy nut. Just what you want from a skeptic.
Skeptic, Phil? I thought we were all called shitlords. Our collective identity is whatever you say it is at the time. You call yourself something bad, that's inappropriate. You call yourself something good, that's inappropriate. Something neutral, that's still inappropriate. I called you something that I read on one of your t-shirts. Well, that's an inappropriate thing for you to be called by me. It's turtles all the way down, isn't it? You have already gone through this whole structure and you've shat on the floor of every corridor. No matter where we go, no matter what we do, no matter what we call ourselves or don't call ourselves, we will never be free from your demented bitching. This has nothing to do with us. There is no group of any size that could be charged with the unfettered bullshit you're miscarrying out of your sandy, sandy vagina. This has everything to do with you. And what a sad, bitter, self-contained, pseudo-elitist sniffer of your own congealed farts you've become. Fuck yourself.
Pendulums swing backwards and forwards, and when it gets too extreme, it sort of swings back, and the momentum carries it through until you're not being called shitlords when you're not shitlords. You kind of are.
That pendulum you're seeing, that's you. That's an obstruction in your own skull. Most of us have this sort of cognitive plumb bob in our heads that gyroscopically guides us towards a sense of principled behavior, whereas instead of this, you have a sweaty pair of swinging dingo's bollocks that flaps one way and makes you go derp skeptics, flaps the other way and makes you go derp shitlords, with absolutely no memory of the last fucking thing you said.
Anyway, so yeah, Sarkeesian was still preaching all her nonsense, but all of these people basically turn up in her meeting and claim that this isn't some sort of kind of douchey move.
Douchey? Boo, 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 boo.
Yeah, they're allowed to do it and all that. It's just kind of douchey.
Fuck douchey, dude. You could call it a downright dick-headed move and I would still stand here waiting to hear what your point is. You can call it douchey, you can call it cringy, you can call it offensive. You're not going to change anyone's mind. Why the fuck do you think it would? You absolute fucking weapon. But as it happens, no, I don't even think it was a douchey move. See, the only thing these people have in common, but the only thing we can say for sure they all have in common is they are all in this photograph. That's it. That's the backbone of this argument from guilt by association thing. We were all photographed in the same place at the same time, once, and that's all you need to decide we're all guilty of each individual sin by each individual one of us. But one thing we can be reasonably sure is that all or most of these people, the thing they have in common is we recently came from a panel discussion featuring Anita Sarkeesian, among others. This photo was taken very shortly after that incident. It could be said that these are people who at some point have had some kind of disagreement with Mrs. Sarkeesian's claims, some kind of disagreement that has not been received or addressed. If someone wants to have a conversation with Anita Sarkeesian, the conversation that it's very important we all have, right? Or even if someone simply wants to leave her some feedback, and yet they find in their path nothing but a disabled comment section, a disabled rating section, and no conceivable way to make their voice heard. And one day they go to VidCon and find themselves openly invited to a Q&A session with Anita Sarkeesian. How and why, in the spinning clusterfuck, is it a douchey move to accept that invitation? Is it because there were 40 of us? Is it so unpredictable that such an inconceivably massive number of people would have that light bulb moment at the same time? Can you imagine being disliked and questioned by 40 different douchebags? Yes, you certainly can. We all can. But Anita shouldn't have to. Is that right? Should we have delegated one of us to go in there and quietly take notes while the rest of us just have to hang back and wait as patiently as we can for the second time Anita does an open Q&A. It's the only time it's ever happened to this fucking day. It's the only letterbox-sized window of opportunity anyone has ever had to actually get a response from that woman. Are you seriously telling me you would prefer it if nobody took that once-in-a-lifetime opportunity because in your estimation it would be a little bit too douchey? What are you doing, Phil? What in the cow jumping over the fuck are you playing at? You know, for someone who's made so very much of an effort to attack Sarkeesian's beliefs over the years, you seem rather paradoxically determined to protect them in the event of anyone else trying to get on in there. The plot thickens, methinks. We all know how weak at the knees you get over narcissistic Armenian mean girls who fucking hate you. But honestly, dude, just hire a dominatrix. You'll make less of a cuck of yourself.
Anyway, and then she calls Sargon a shithead and a garbage human or something.
Wow, you recited that quite accurately. You're rather good at remembering words and names when you're not in the ghostly process of administering the cold shoulder.
And they basically milk it for all it's worth.
What?
They basically milk it for all it's worth.
Milk what? Anita? Who milks Anita for all she's worth?
They basically milk it for all it's worth. They basically milk it for all it's worth. They basically milk it for all it's worth.
Anita?
They basically milk it for all it's worth. They basically milk it for all it's worth. They basically milk it for all it's worth. They basically milk it for all it's worth.
Anita, 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 Anita.
They basically milk it for all it's worth.
As you can see, you're still doing it, Phil. 5 years and about 50 odd videos later, you're still talking about how much money Sarkeesian is making. And don't think we haven't noticed. Complaining about how much money someone is making is what dirty smear merchants do, when for all their efforts they can't find a damn thing wrong with what you're actually saying and doing. Brought to you by the Money Badgers, TM. This helps nobody but the Money Badgers, and you're helping nobody except Anita. In case you didn't know, when she said this...
If you Google my name on YouTube, you get shitheads like this dude who are making these dumbass videos that just say the same shit over and over again. Whatever, dude.
She may have been looking at Sargon when she said that, but it was pretty obvious she was talking about you, Phil. Settle down, have a cold shower if you need one. But yeah, this is how it works. Some douchebag woke hipster creates a problem on top of a problem. Some douchebag virtue signaler blames it on everyone except the woke hipster in question. Rinse and repeat until everyone is fucking dead. You and Anita are just two sides of the same worthless coin shoved up the ass of a hemorrhoidal weasel. Just like YouTube Jesus and the paedophilia with which he is obsessed are two sides of the same hemorrhoidal weasel shoved up the ass of a child.
But the thing is, by that time, you've lost track of the original goals. I mean, the original goals were to show that feminism was junk.
The original goal? The original goal? Are you shitting me? Are you shitting me, Phil? Are you seriously dropping your pants, squatting over the toilet and shitting me out of your ass? Are you straining a sphincter and coiling me into the toilet bowl and surreptitiously sniffing me? Is that what's going on? These are different people, and they have different goals. Do you understand that? Again, the only thing they have in common is they are in the same photograph. And yet not only do you think you can define them all as self-proclaimed shitlords one minute and then self-proclaimed skeptics the next, but you can even claim to dictate what their collective goal should be, and that it should match with your individual goal. Who in the Sam Harris hell do you think you are? And for what it's worth, I can confirm that I do not share your goal. I will explain this as often as I have to. I don't think rallying around a negative proposal is going to get us anywhere. I'd rather positively advocate for something that has the wherewithal to organically replace whatever I think is negative. Anti-feminism is not the answer. Giving a shit about men is the answer, in my honest and sometimes unpopular opinion. Oh, I got one, yay. I would rather get behind a pro than get in front of a con. Good day to you.
And now what are you into? You're basically into the drama mill.
What's this video about, Phil? The one you're doing here. It's not a science video. It's not about news or current affairs. You're bitching about celebrities. How in the fuck is that not drama? Let me guess, you're better than that.
And when the drama becomes more important than the actual issues, it's time to move on. They basically look it for its worth.
Are you ever going to move on from Sarkeesian? You can't go back to Kasparian, remember? That was never on the cards. Why don't you just go to Armenia, dude? They're all over the place. All right, now do Carl.
Which means there's only one guy left here, Sargon, Sargon of 3%, who presided over one of the most cataclysmic political reversals in history.
In history? Is your sense of historical perspective just as stunted as your sense of political perspective? You know what, I'm going to chalk that up to hyperbole and I'll let you carry on.
Before he joined UKIP, the area that UKIP got something like 23% or 25%, something like that, of the vote in the European election. And so it was almost a done deal. You know, what could possibly go wrong?
Okay, so 3%. We'll get around to the 3% thing in a minute. Here's another figure for you to mull over. 100%. That's the amount of Carl's Patreon account he lost in one day without warning. If we're talking losses, if we're talking unprecedented turnarounds, if we're talking about shit that was a disaster for Sargon, why didn't you mention that? Come on, you've got plenty of lesser-known derangement syndrome sufferers flustering around on the forest floor below you, complaining that it's Sargon's fault that half of their patrons disappeared overnight. Why not throw that in his face? Is it because even your conscience can't quite stretch that far? You can't unsee what you saw in that Stendercraft conversation between Matt Christensen and Jackie the Clown Queen. You can't unhear the scatterbrain nonsense that came out of Patron's so-called trust and safety team. As much as you would really, really like to believe that it was Sargon's fault, you know full well for a fact that it was Patron's fault. Although, arguably, before it was Patron's fault, it was the fault of everyone who went crying to Patron saying, Sargon said the N-word that one time. It was the fault of everyone who made a video in the same goddamn week, the exact same goddamn video, capturing that glorious moment when he called white supremacists a naughty word. You know who you are. Person listening to this video when it finally makes it to YouTube and one of your clique buddies tweets out, oh my god, they insulted our brave pimp daddy. You know exactly who you are. It's not just Thunderfoot, it's not just YouTube Jesus. It was the dozens of ludicrous fuckrats who all simultaneously thought it'd be funny to complain to the world about one time when Sargon used a word that you all fucking used. And it worked. That was the video you made, that was the excuse Patreon used, and that was why your financial income got slashed in half, oh woke-ass denizens of the better-than-you community. Well fucking done. Congratulations, you shot yourself in the foot and blamed it on the guy you were aiming at. Please do carry on giving us your advice about Brexit, you fucking chode. So if anyone's still clinging to this bitch-face excuse that it's Sargon's fault that Patreon turned out to be overseen by Precambrian protoplasmic stock creatures who capriciously make examples of people for no reason they can ever justify, you really need to bend yourself backwards and fuck yourself in the face. You're blaming the guy who the emperor threw to the lions instead of blaming the emperor, or indeed that farty little band of snitches who do the emperor's dirty work for free, and they still think they're better than the emperor. Get the galactic fuck over yourselves, you pathetic, gullible stooges. All this shows is you're even deeper into this derangement syndrome than Mr. Mason here, and that is saying something. What I'm getting at, regarding what Dr. Phil himself is saying here, is Carl campaigned for election in the European Parliament this year, and within weeks of this happening, the mainstream media was throwing a hyperventilative fit of nothing burgers and petty lies in an attempt to make him unelectable. The sheer feat of hysteria seen on national television made the chimp out they had at Patreon look like a fucking tea party. The good kind that chimps have, not the bad kind that Republicans have. Everything from The Guardian to the Daily Mail came out with all guns a-blazing against him because they were evidently that afraid of him getting as many votes as he otherwise might have got. The institutions in charge of telling the public what to think, or should I say the institutions who have very mistakenly assumed such an office, they all put their differences aside. They linked hands and threw every lie and smear they could dig up against Carl of Swindon, and when he ends up getting just 3% of the vote, what is the only possible explanation for this? It's all Sargon's fault. Why did he get milkshaked? Because he's a misogynist. Why did he get kippers thrown at him? Because he's a Nazi. These are things that you have been called, aren't they, Phil? In fact, a whole bunch of lying twats tried to get you fired for being a Nazi. Remember? It's 4 years ago, let alone more than 10 minutes ago, you're not going to remember. And if they had succeeded, you'd have been out of a job, and there'd be some guy in your department going, whatever happened to Phil Mason? Couldn't even hold down a job. Not exactly the highest card in the deck, is he? And that dickhead would just be another you. Phil Mason, just another soppy tart who can dish it out but can't take it. When Sargon stepped into the political arena, he sparked a display of public relations explosives, the likes of which you will only ever dream of. He had people all over the country and indeed all over the world calling him a misogynist and a Nazi. And he didn't lose his job either. The point I really want to make is this is Sargon, this is Carl of Swindon, on network television in front of an audience of millions, actually articulating the arguments we've been trying for years to articulate on a scale as wide as that. And the mainstream media took every valid argument he gave them and twisted it into rape, though, revealing to anyone with a brain and a shit to give that they are dirty smear merchants, and he is in the right. And you think Sargon is failing in an arena in which you are somehow succeeding, because after all the nationwide shitmongering, he got 3% of the Southwest vote. And if 3% was all he was ever going to get, then consider what the hell is happening in this country and indeed this continental union, when with just 3% of the vote in potentia, in just one ordinary part of England, you can scare the break-dancing bejesus out of the entire mass media. Did you know that was possible? Did you know one ordinary guy can show the whole country what a brood of flailing twats our mass media has become? No, Phil, your brain won't let you see it. You'd rather defect to the very same ruthless smear machine that would have your head on a pike if you ever poked your head above the water. Because it's easier to make one man your enemy. One man at a time, is that it? How about eat a dick one at a time? And need I remind you, you got 0% of the vote. So did I. I got 0% of the television airtime. I got precisely 0 column inches in the press, and I managed none of the awareness raising or indeed revenue that comes with these achievements. Neither did you, dickhead. So do please tell us how your 57th video about how much money Anita Sarkeesian is pissing away is doing more to educate society than a guy who is practically at this point a household fucking name. Do fill us in, Phil. Tell us your secret recipe. Perchance does it contain a pinch of salt?
But they made the party so toxic that not even Nigel Farage would rejoin the Brexit party, saying that it had been almost citing Sargon. I mean, certainly singling out Sargon as one of the reasons why the party had become too toxic.
For those of you who are unfamiliar with British politics, Nigel Farage is Thunderfoot's best friend and lifelong mentor. If there's anyone Thunderfoot trusts to be a good judge of character, it's Nigel Farage.
So yeah, it's true that, part of the reason that the Brexit party got no votes is because Farage started a new party.
One more time?
Part of the reason that the Brexit party got no votes is because Farage started a new party.
Okay, you said Brexit party there. You obviously meant to say UKIP, but funnily enough, you may have been shrewdly, albeit accidentally, predicting the headlines of the future.
Part of the reason that the Brexit party got no votes is because Farage started a new party.
Maybe the People's Brexit. There's a nice ring to it, eh?
His I wouldn't even rape you jokes might go down great amongst, the fan base here, but in the wider population, you just look like kind of a crazy guy.
By the wider population, I assume you're still referring to the voting public in the southwest of England in the 2019 MEP elections. Well, the population's about 5.5 million. They had a 40% turnout. That's about 2 million people in a region of roughly 24,000 square kilometres. That's the wider population, is it? Normally I disapprove of the argument from popularity, but you've rather forced my hand here by choosing to focus on those 2 million regional persons, when half that many people and counting are already personally subscribed to Carl of Swindon on YouTube alone. If all of them lived in the southwest of England, he'd have got as much as 50% of the vote, but they don't. They live everywhere, all across the globe. And in case you've gone and forgotten what you said again, what we're looking for is the wider population across the globe is, by all accounts, the widest population we can measure. And by that criterion, the criterion you chose, Sargon is more popular than you, and yet you are trying to tell him how to be more popular. Honk. Even though you're a man of science, even though education by basic mathematics is very much your shtick, it all gets squeezed out of your system by the harrowing effects of everybody derangement syndrome. You can carry on with the better than you routine, even when the numbers right in front of you prove that you are not. Maintaining the belief that you are better than any given person at any given moment is far more central to your philosophy than any objectively measured facet of reality can ever be. And it's shit like this that makes you a cancer to any movement with which you associate. You make atheists look like arrogant and unprincipled dicks because you are an arrogant and unprincipled dick. You make Anita Sarkeesian, you make Anita Sarkeesian's critics look like obsessive lunatics because you are obsessive over Anita Sarkeesian. You can see why she calls it harassment, because in your case it actually looks like it. This is what you do. You turn up to the party, you drop shit everywhere, and then you fuck off complaining about all the shit. You want all the privileges of being treated like an individual, along with the privilege of collectivizing as a singularly culpable entity anyone else you don't like. And I'm sorry I had to make you the poster boy for the kind of character defect I'm illustrating. But rest assured, it isn't just about you, Phil. I only wish there weren't so bloody many people out there with the same character defect. You mentioned several of them in this video of yours. You know, the other people who insist that they are separating themselves from some nebulous skeptic community that they were never invited to in the first place. But you try to mock them by claiming they are part of that community, no matter how much they insist that they are not. And they'll do the same to you. Because when you've got nothing worth saying, you've got nothing left but calling people names by association and getting a massive bee in your ass over how much money they're earning in the same free market in which you're mysteriously earning less. So you're not a cancer on everything. You don't paint an inaccurately dark picture of every cause you join. On the contrary, you're a perfectly typical specimen of the better than you community. Now then, Philip of Massendom, quick question. Why didn't you do me? There I am. That's right, it's not Sargon's taller brother. It's not Styx, Hex, and Hammer after an unfortunate incident with a frying pan to the face. It's little old me. Why didn't I get a mention, Phil? That's pretty obvious, isn't it? It's because I'm not worth mentioning. It's because you don't remember me from anything. It's because I haven't done anything of note, at least as far as you're concerned. The title and indeed the theme of your video is The Shitlords of 2017, Where Are They Now? And you're picking on the people who have actually gone somewhere, enough to get on your radar at least, and you're concluding that they've gone nowhere. That guy who went somewhere, he hasn't gone anywhere. This guy who really got on my nerves, he didn't get on my nerves at all, I swear. This guy who ran for European Parliament, he's done nothing. This guy who helped pioneer alternative social media layabout, nothing but a conspiracy theorist. This guy whose name I know, I wish I didn't know his name. This guy who I thought was someone else, who gives a shit? I'm better than him anyway. And in the meantime, you've quite noticeably skipped over all the people who genuinely have gone absolutely nowhere in the past 2 years, like me. You could have torn me several new ones. 2 years ago, my subscriber base was about 50k, and it's still about 50k. That's surely an embarrassment worth highlighting, and one for which I obviously have no one to blame but myself. And what's more, I'm part of Honey Badger Radio, in case you didn't hear. While you were busy having lucid wet dreams about Andy Warski, Honey Badger Radio lost a civil court case, essentially flushing thousands of dollars of donations down the toilet and into the hands of the very gatekeepers we're trying to expose. And we clearly have no one to blame but ourselves. Right? Even if we did, it's not like that's a detail that slowed you down in any of your other drive-by mini hit pieces. You could have done so much decimation to me in so little time, but you glossed right over it. Why? Because, as I said, you're not really interested in stories of YouTubers who haven't gone anywhere in 2 years. You're interested in stories of YouTubers who have gone somewhere in the past 2 years, so you can shut your eyes, stick your fingers in your ears and go, this hasn't happened. If any YouTuber actually did something in the real world, then it might give a few passers-by the impression that such a YouTuber is in some way better than me. And we all know there are no people better than me, let alone YouTubers. And although I've satirically played the identity game with talk of the better than you community, perhaps I've called you a woke hipster here and there, but that's because I believe it's far more important to call out these nameless character defects in people's behavior than it is to judge someone as white or male or token or a leftist, or a rightist, or a boomer, or a millennial. There is no group identity that explains any of this shit. I hope terms like woke hipster don't take off as a group insult or a catch-all thought-terminating cliche, because what's actually going wrong is in you, the individual. You have your very own unique recipe of wrong, and it needs to be addressed individually. It's something that is performed by individuals and even individualists. Individualists are even capable of banding together in celebrity cliques who never call each other out on their bullshit. And just because their particular clique has no name they're aware of and is exclusive enough to the internet that they will never be photographed together, they automatically think they're better than these people because these people have gone into the real world and we can give them all the same name. At the end of the day, opportunistic grifters will use identity politics. They can't help themselves. It's just so easy and so cheap and so effective, especially in an age where it is endorsed as a virtuous weapon, as long as you're attacking the approved public enemies. It is the last resort of a scoundrel who has made a public enemy of himself to try and claw his way back into the good books of the general public by turning around and attacking all the other scoundrels. You think that makes you the best scoundrel in the bunch, but guess what? It makes you the very worst kind of pigfucker, I mean scoundrel. Your craving for popularity will make you stomp on those who are innocent and those who are validated by facts, while you kiss the celestial ballsacks of indefensible liars and grifters who keep getting away with it. Let's find the best possible example to play us out with, shall we? Riddle me this, Dr. Phil. What should be done with people who tell the truth?
I mean, Mueller covered up for a decade for Epstein, kidnapping kids, flying them on sex planes, some kids as young as 7 years old, reportedly.
Why was Alex Jones banned? Well, for me and my ever-simplistic brain, isn't it obvious? Making accusations that someone is a paedophile monster, running a paedophile ring, and suggesting that it's your duty to stop them.
Nailed it, Phil. Now go on and bring it home for us. What should be done about the actual red-handed, bang-to-rights, faceless, dangerous, degenerate liars you're talking about?
Making accusations that someone is a paedophile monster, running a paedophile ring, and suggesting that it's your duty to stop them. For me and my ever-simplistic brain, isn't it obvious?
My message to the men's rights movement is simple. Keep going. You are needed now more than ever. You have weathered the slings and arrows and shown that through perseverance you can create a space to discuss those important topics without radical feminist bigots being able to shut you down. Don't stop now. If you stop, what follows? An unjust future, where the powerful masquerade as the powerless, and the powerless must cruelly suffer in silence. There are many men leading lives of quiet desperation. That is, those who do not simply choose to put an end to their suffering. So I say again, you have to keep going.
Listen, Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed. Go. Vital. Go. Guidance. Go. Control. Go. Self-com. Go. Ginseng. Go. Econ. Go. Surgeon. Go. Retro. Go. Vital. Go. Guidance. Go. Control. Go. Retro. Go. Vital. Go. Guidance. Go. Control. Go. 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 Go.
Because a lot of our European fans didn't actually get to see me in Amsterdam, and I didn't get to see them, I'd like to reprise our Badgerdam Amsterdam meetup. That was very successful last year, so I'd like to do it again this year. It'll be November 16th at the Westergasfabrik, which I butchered, 1 p.m. And if you want to see that happen, please go to feedthebadger.com there or in the low bar and throw a few shekels in the hat. We're going to have a venue this year, and maybe we'll be some speechifying if we can get a Karen. And we'll only get a Karen if we can meet our first goal, which is $3,900, and it covers travel, accommodations, and venue for the event. And we're also going to try to get Mike up. So if you want to see Karen and Mike and me, go to feedthebadger.com and throw a few shekels in the hat, and you'll get some great rewards in the bargain as well. That's feedthebadger.com. Well, aren't you going to start talking about how I'm a con artist cheating everyone out of their money?
No.
Then why are you just hovering?
Never you mind.
Whatever. So if you'd like to see us get to Amsterdam, and also possibly London, where we'll be going to Messages for Men, me and Mike, and Oslo, where me and Karen, if I get there, will be going to the Man's Forum for International Men's Day, and possibly Dublin, which is a really big stretch, and I won't be trying if I don't get the money for it. But I would like to get to Dublin for their event as well. So if you're interested in that, please go to feedthebadger.com. More information on what it is, why we should do it, and help make our EU trip happen. And, like I said, enjoy some swag in the process. Okay, I'm done.
Hello, this is Netherlands Customs and Border Protection, is it?